Next man up, 1025 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you, broadcasting live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Titans get the win on Friday night in Atlanta, although that's not really all that important. But the Titans look good at times, and we're able to pull off a 23-20 victory over the Falcons, get to 1-1 in the preseason. We will react to everything that happened on Friday night. Also, it is college football game week. We have college football 5 days away in week 0. We will talk some college football in hour number 2. Also, Joseph Newgarden, Tennessee native, Indy 500 champion, joins us in studio coming up at 10:45 as he prepares for the final 2 races of the IndyCar season, including the Music City Grand Prix next weekend, August 30th and 31st. Parker Kelly is with me today. Parker, what's going on? Hope you had a good weekend.
Jake, I had a phenomenal weekend. It was nice that even though this win didn't necessarily count, it's good to just see the Titans get a win. First win since November. So, hey, they are back in the win column, and I'm happy to be with you today.
Right. I did make the point earlier, maybe like a week or two ago, that the Titans did have the same amount of preseason games as they did preseason wins as they did regular season wins. So take all of these with a grain of salt. It doesn't really matter whether you win preseason games or not, but it was good to see the Titans perform better overall than they did a week ago in Tampa. The big story, obviously, is Cam Ward, the number 1 overall pick. He was out there for 3 series. And before we even get into performance, Parker, I tweeted this out on Friday night when I saw Cam Ward walking back out to the huddle, and I did not see Dan Moore walking out to the huddle. It was Udo was heading out in his place. And I tweeted out, I said, not loving the idea of sending Cam Ward out again without a starting left tackle. It didn't end up being an issue. They went 3 and out. They punted the ball away, and he was done. But, man, he should not have gone back out there. There was just no reason to send him out there in a preseason game. Yeah, it wasn't great execution from the offense on the first 2 drives, but I feel like you had seen enough, and there was no reason to risk it with your potential franchise quarterback to go out there without his blindside blocker on the field.
Yeah, I think it was interesting because I saw your tweet, and I actually kind of took the opposite approach. I love that he went back out there for a 3rd drive because the 2nd drive was horrendous. So I'm happy that he went back out for a 3rd drive. I do agree with you because do you really trust the offensive line depth behind Dan Moore? And especially like Udo, I was shocked that he went out there.
I got to say, I did not know he was on the team until I saw him walk out there like that. It's same thing as when Kendall Brooks had the pick 6.
Right.
I was like, well, that's the first time I realized that guy was on the team.
Yeah. I knew Udo was on the team. I just didn't think that he was the backup tackle or whatever. I thought it would be Rupchage or Ojukwu at this point, but you want Cam Ward behind an offensive line that gives him time. So I understand your viewpoint as well.
Yes, I was not thrilled with the idea of running him back out there. Again, it didn't end up being a factor. They went 3 and out. It was, incomplete, pass out to Bryce Oliver, and then the incompletion downfield to Alec Iamaner. I hated the play call initially on that 3rd down because it's 3rd and 2. Like, why are we throwing the ball deep? But I thought it was actually a really good play call by Brian Callahan. It was that little shock action of 2 guys run curls, and then Iamaner tries to take off on the slot fade and get over top of the defense. It wasn't a horrible throw from Cam Ward. Iamaner did everything he could. It was good coverage. But overall, for Cam Ward, he goes 2 for 7, 42 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions, no sacks in his 2nd game of the preseason. It wasn't great from Cam Ward, but it wasn't horrible. I think there were obviously a few things that happened that could have made his stats look better. Everyone's going to point to the Van Jefferson drop, and we will talk about that a little more in depth. But also, the play that I remember most from that game was the first screen pass out to Chimdike, where Cam Ward goes sidearm and almost threw it backwards. And I feel like not enough people are talking about how that was almost a disastrous play from Cam Ward. Would have been a fumble. Obviously, Chimdike did pick it up. They would have kept possession. But that's one of those plays where it's like, all right, Cam, you got to be careful with the ball there. And if you're going to throw that pass sidearm out, you either got to make sure it hits DK in the chest or you got to make sure it's going forward. And they didn't review it. I thought they could have. I thought it was pretty
I thought
close
they
to
very
being
well
a
could
lateral.
have. Yeah. What was the word Corey Curtis used for bad plays?
Yeah, catastrophic.
Catastrophic. That was almost a catastrophic play because a quarterback's worst nightmare is throwing it behind your receiver on a bubble screen. It turns into a fumble. At first glance, I thought it was a fumble.
I did too.
And when they decided not to review it, I was very surprised and kind of relieved because that was, almost catastrophic.
Yes, it was not good from Cam Ward. And again, the stats probably don't tell the full story. I didn't even realize that the second screen pass with the orbit motion from Iamaner, they called that a backwards pass. So it wasn't a completion for him. Because I was thinking through, I was like, he only had 2 completions. I remember at least 3. That was called a backwards pass. So it was a running play for Alec Iamaner there because he had obviously the long pass to Iamaner. Great play on Cam Ward's first throw of the game. I thought, I heard Robbie and Connor talking about the footwork from Cam Ward, and it's very inconsistent, especially in the Tampa game. It felt like he was throwing everything fading away with his footwork. But I thought the footwork on that first throw of the game where, pocket kind of collapses off his right side. He steps around it, gets to the outside, and he hit Iamaner in stride. It was a great throw. And the Bryce Oliver throw on the third drive where he found him on the out route, got him close to the sticks. I thought it was good. But again, it was just inconsistent from Cam Ward. But I don't know if the numbers actually tell the story of how he played on Friday night in Atlanta.
Oh, it's a nightmare for stat watchers. You see the 2 for 7, but that does not. One of my offensive coordinators in college used to say, stats don't lie, but they don't always tell the truth either.
Right.
So you have to watch the game to understand. And I think Brian Callahan in the preseason there are some explosive plays, but I think everything is kind of vanilla because you don't want to give away too much in the season. Dan Orlovsky did a breakdown on Twitter, and he was talking about Cam Ward's footwork, and there were plays where he's hitting the back of his drop and he's letting that thing go, and it looks nice. And then there was a play in the Tampa game. I can't remember. I think it was the ball that was almost picked off, the one to Ayoman
Right.
in the Tampa Bay game. His shoulders were literally square towards the receiver, and his arm was kind of like the sideways throw, and he was throwing off his back foot. So it's that type of stuff. Just because you can do that every now and again doesn't mean you should always do it.
Right. And the play, they didn't count, but Ward rolling to his right on that first drive, and a flag had come down. I think Cam Ward saw it and maybe thought it was on the defense. It wasn't. So if he had thrown a pick, it would have counted. Ended up hitting Van Jefferson, dropping it in the bucket. It was out of bounds. But those are those kind of plays where it's like, Cam, just dirt that ball. Just throw that into the seats. It wasn't quite as bad as the one in Tampa where he tried to throw it away and it landed inbounds. But it's one of those plays where it's like, Cam, you didn't need to try and make a play on that one. Just live to see another down. It didn't end up hurting him. He hasn't made the same type of mistakes. And you mentioned the Iamaner throw last week against Tampa that was almost intercepted. I felt like the reads were better on Friday night in Atlanta. Were there some throws that maybe could have been better? Sure. But I think the reads were better and he was making better decisions. But it still does concern me that he had, for the third time in about a week, in less than a week, he's had a play where he probably should have just thrown it away and ended up leaving it either inside the sideline or right next to the sideline. That's something that he's got to work on, is if you're going to throw it away, throw it away. Make the fan in the 8th row go make a play on that ball. Don't let the defensive back have any chance to make a play on it.
But that's the Cam Ward experience right there. You encapsulate it perfectly. Will Levis, that was one of our main complaints, is if the Titans would go down 14, he'd try to get them right back tied up in one play, and you just can't do that. You got to take it one play, one drive at a time. That's the thing about Cam Ward, at least in college. He has that Superman capability, but there are also times where he's reckless with the football, but the good outweighs the bad more likely than not. So that's what he has to learn is, okay, I can do this, but I also can't do this. And I think he's learning that, especially throwing over the middle. When Cody Barton has picked him off several times in practice, he's learning, okay, I can be a little aggressive here, but right in this situation, I probably shouldn't throw this ball.
Right. It's all about learning from mistakes. And I would much rather have him make all these mistakes in the preseason, in training camp, so we can learn from it. But you're right. There is a little bit of that Levis gunslinger hero ball in him. And he has to prove that he can learn from it, because clearly Will Levis didn't when he made the exact same mistake in back-to-back weeks to start the season. And, I always laugh about the Brian Callahan close-up on CBS, because that is what every Titans fan was thinking in that moment, was what Brian Callahan said to Will Levis walking off the field. You can't have moments like that when the games start counting. So you've got, what, 20 days until the opener. 20 days until you're playing in Mile High against the Broncos, one of the best defenses in the league. Get these mistakes out of the way, but you better learn from them, because if you are rolling right and try and make a throw down the field where you should probably throw it away and it gets picked off in a real game, the reaction's not going to be quite as, soft from the fans and from your coaching staff as it is during the preseason. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. If you have thoughts, we are reacting to the Titans win in preseason game number 2 over Atlanta on Friday night. We'd love to hear from you. Our phone line's driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Again, plenty to come on the show today. Joseph Newgarden going to join us in studio at 10:45, getting ready for the Borchetta Bourbon Music City Grand Prix coming up in just under 2 weeks. So we'll talk to him about that and his illustrious career for the Nashville native in the IndyCar Series. Also, it is college football game week. It may be week 0, but it's college football, and it is 5 days away. We'll get Farmageddon in Dublin coming up at 11 a.m. on Saturday. We will talk some college football in the 10 o'clock hour, but we're continuing to recap the Titans win on Friday night and the play everyone's talking about. Cam Ward throwing it over the top to Van Jefferson. It hits him in the hands and falls to the turf. Was it a drop? And did Alec Iamaner's performance maybe start to push him to that starting X position? We'll talk about it coming up next. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up here on 102.5 The Game.
Really, next play. That's all we can do. If I need to throw the ball better, or if he thought, I let him too far out in front, or if he just thought, he dropped the ball. So, at the end of the day, it's on both of us. We got to make that play. It's better happen now than, come season time.
What did he say?
Not much. Just I got you. I really came up to him, see how the ball was. He thought it was a little bit out in front, so I just got to put it on his chest next time.
That was Cam Ward after Friday night's game in Atlanta, talking about the play that really got the Titans fan base buzzing on Friday night. Long throw, over the middle, deep crosser route to Van Jefferson. Cam Ward hit him in the hand, but it fell to the turf incomplete. Really did change the outlook of what Cam Ward's day looked like. After that, they had to punt and then went 3 and out on his second 2 drives. So really didn't see another opportunity for Cam Ward after that. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5 the game. Van Jefferson, it wasn't an easy catch. It really wasn't. And you watch the play, it hit him in the left hand as he reached out. But was it a catchable ball for an NFL wide receiver? For sure. And I think the end zone view is where you really see how impressive of a throw it was from Cam Ward. Now, I'm not trying to overhype it. It was still an incompletion. And was it a perfect throw? Absolutely not. It's funny. I just had a friend on my personal text line say that we're about to debate whether this is the greatest incompletion of all time from Cam Ward to Van Jefferson in the preseason. It was not. Like, Cam Ward made a good throw. He threaded the needle between a couple of defenders over top of a linebacker. It was a good throw. Was it a perfect throw? No. Could Van Jefferson have maybe laid out or, adjusted a little bit differently to try and make a play on that ball? For sure. And it makes me wonder if Van Jefferson is doing enough, not only to keep his starting spot, but if there's a battle at the bottom of the roster, do you want Van Jefferson, who you kind of know what he is, or a guy who maybe is a little more unproven, but has a higher ceiling? Because I'm looking at it, and we've talked about it's either 6 or 7 wide receivers that they're going to take. You can look at it and say Ridley, Lockett, Iamaner, DK, those are locks. I'd put Bryce Oliver as a lock there too. And Van Jefferson has been considered in that category as well. I'm wondering if you keep 6, does it come down to James Prochet or Van Jefferson? And honestly, if I had to make the choice, I might go Prochet. I understand Jefferson, he's been in the league a while. He's had a couple of good seasons. But what has Van Jefferson done in training camp and preseason that makes you feel like, yeah, this guy is deserving of a lock on this roster? You don't hear a whole lot. And Parker, you've been out at practice. Like, is Van Jefferson really ever making plays? Or is it more just like, all right, well, he's a veteran in this room who's had some success at the NFL level. He's going to get a spot on this team no matter what.
I'm not even trying to be a jerk or anything, but when I go out there, I watch him and I think to myself, when was the last time Van Jefferson made a catch, made an impressive catch? Because to be honest, I haven't seen it yet. And the reality is that ball against Atlanta, it was an absolute seed from Cam Ward. Maybe a little bit out in front. Cam Ward took ownership because that's what leaders do.
That's what he should do.
But it was a drop, and it should have been caught. Van Jefferson has been running with the ones the entire time I've been out there, the entire time. And if you want to keep that spot, you make those catches. And I feel really good about this. I've been talking with TD about this. Alec Iamaner, I said, would be this team's starting X at some point, whether it's the start of the season, whether it's week 4, or whether it's whatever. He's going to be this team's starting X at some point. And it's plays like that where Iamaner made plays. Van Jefferson didn't. It's plays like that where you lose your starting job to a guy like Iamaner.
Right. Van Jefferson is basically your replacement level wide receiver. Like, he is about as average as you can get. And it's not like he's doing anything special. Like Prochet, I've heard in practice, and he's running with the 2s for the most part. So he's not consistently playing against the best corners on the other side. But it does seem like Prochet is making plays. And he had a couple of really nice plays on Friday night against Atlanta. I wouldn't hate if your 6 doesn't include Van Jefferson. I think he's going to make the team because that room is very young. Outside of Ridley and Lockett, There's not a whole lot of NFL experience in that room. Oliver's going to make the team. Your 2 fourth-round picks are going to make the team. I think the ship has sailed on Restrepo. But if it came down to you have to keep 6, like if you look at your 53 and say, man, if we keep 7 wide receivers, we're going to lose a really talented player somewhere else. And they don't want to do that. And it's down to Prochet and Jefferson. Prochet, who could be your starting punt returner. I kind of would lean maybe Van Jefferson gets cut. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but he hasn't helped his case. Chip from Mount Juliet is saying basically the same thing. Van Jefferson, good guy with a lot of physical attributes, but he needs to prove he can make the big plays. He's dropped a few key passes already, not helping his case. I agree. I think Van Jefferson I think he's closer to the bubble than maybe we think he was heading into training camp. If I had to guess, I think he does make the 53. But is he long for the 53? If you start to see some of these young guys come along, I'm not so sure. Also, quick tangent, because I mentioned Prochet as the punt returner. Why on earth was Jaquan Jackson taking punts on Friday
thoughts
night?
Exactly.
Oh, my goodness.
It's wasted. It's wasted reps.
I was watching the game, and I'm like, all right, who's back to return? Is it DK or is it Prochet? And I hear Paul Burmeister go, Jaquan Jackson back to receive the punt. And I could not believe it. Like, why are you wasting those reps on a guy who's not going to make the team? There is a 0% chance Jaquan Jackson is on the 53. I would guarantee it that Jaquan Jackson doesn't make the team. Why are you putting him back there?
It's the thing. It's like, it's more so quantity right now over quality. You have a lot of receivers that could theoretically make this roster, but Jackson, he had his chance. As a rookie, granted it was as a rookie, you had your shot. Now you bring in Chim Dike, who is perfectly capable of returning punts, who you invested a 4th-round pick in, and then James Prochet, I agree with you. I think he should be wide receiver 6 right now. I still think Van Jefferson's going to find a way to make the roster, but James Prochet has the capability of returning punts, and he doesn't go away in practice.
I was so confused, and I'd love an answer. I don't know. Did Callahan speak on this at all? I don't think he did. And I don't
think he was asked.
I don't think he was asked about it. I'd love to hear an answer of, like, why are you putting a guy back there who's not going to make the team at punt returner? Because we've seen how bad the punt returners have been over the last decade in Nashville. And it's not just not explosive. They fumble the ball all the time. Why not give the guys who actually are going to do it in the regular season an opportunity to do it in the preseason? Like, Prochet would be great. If he's good, put him on the roster. He can be your punt returner. But I would have loved to see more of Chim Dike back there because he's going to make the team. You invested a high 4th-round pick, the top pick in the 4th round, if I'm not mistaken, on this guy. Why would you not let him return punts over Jaquan Jackson? It made absolutely no sense. Anyway, tangent there. I just, watching the game on Friday night, Van Jefferson drops that pass. And again, it wasn't like it hit him square between the numbers and he let it fall to the turf. Like, it wasn't the easiest catch in the world. But I think he's closer to the bubble than a lot of people may have thought. And dropping a pass like that, it moves you a little bit closer. And who knows, all it takes is 1 or 2 good practices from James Prochet to say, you know what? Maybe we don't need Van Jefferson. Or if Alec Iamander continues to rise, maybe we don't need Van Jefferson.
I promise it's going to happen at some point. Iamander will be this team's starting X at some point.
He's going to make the roster out of camp, I believe. But I wonder if, we talk about how important the top waiver priority is. I wonder if maybe Van Jefferson is that guy on the bubble of, all right, you made the initial 53, but let's say a somewhat veteran wide receiver gets cut somewhere else that maybe this team wasn't expecting. I think that's an easy trade out to make. I don't have any player specifically in mind, but I don't think Van Jefferson's spot on this roster is completely safe by any means.
Especially not after that performance. His best season came with the Rams. I think this is when I can't remember if it was Odell Beckham who was out, but he had 800 yards.
Right.
And since then, it's been 369, 106, 101, 209, 276.
Right.
You keep this guy on the roster, in my opinion, just because he's a veteran.
You need veteran leadership in that room, but you have Tyler Lockett, you have Calvin Ridley. If you could get an upgrade there, or if you think that somebody already on your team is an upgrade, I could see Van Jefferson not making this team. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. If you have thoughts on the Titans win in Atlanta on Friday night, we are recapping it here. Also some college football talk in the 10 o'clock hour. And don't forget Joseph Newgarden going to join us at 10:45 live in studio. 2793 on the text line said, I thought Kaharski was joining the show on Mondays. We not specifically on Mondays. And I was talking to PK before. The Titans practice schedule this week is a little bit wonky with 10 a.m. practices the next 3 days. So no TD tomorrow as well. TD is going to join on Thursday when the Titans aren't practicing. I promise, once the Titans get to a consistent practice schedule for game weeks, we will have a more consistent schedule on the program. But right now, with the Titans still in this flexible, movable training camp schedule, we have to be flexible and move our schedule around too.
They're stuck with the other PK that covers the Titans.
Right. We've got HPK with us today. So with practice at 10 a.m. today, we couldn't get PK in, but there's a chance he'll be on later in the week. So we'll see what we can do there. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. This week's Nashville's best deal is Bavarian Beer House, conveniently located at Opry Mills Mall. Enjoy beer, food, music, and fun at Nashville's only authentic German beer hall, where it's Oktoberfest every day. Head to theGameNashville.com/deals now to get a $50 gift card for only $25 to Bavarian Beer House while supplies last. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you on this Monday. We're going to talk some more about the young playmakers for the Titans who showed out on Friday night. That's up next here on Next Man Up, 102.5 The Game. This fall, live at the Pinnacle at Nashville Yards, Tim McGraw will perform at Trinetics Rock the Cradle. This event is sure to be a great time celebrating a great cause. Proceeds from the event will support newborns and moms at Ascension St. Thomas Midtown. Get your tickets now at rockthecradlenashville.org. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you on this Monday. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Talking Titans. Titans winning in their second preseason game on Friday night, 23-20 over the Atlanta Falcons. And Cam Ward goes 2 for 7, 42 yards, although I don't know if you can scout the box score there. We were just talking about Van Jefferson. Big drop, kind of cut some of the momentum that the Titans had on that first drive after the 35-yard catch by Alec Iamaner. Iamaner, along with some of the other young pass catchers for the Titans, had a very good day. I looked through the stats. So I mentioned with Corey Curtis last week that you look at the young pass catchers, and I'm going to include Xavier Restrepo in here, even though I think he's fallen to a different tier than a lot of these other guys. But Gunnar Helm, Bryce Oliver, Chim DK, Alec Iamaner, Xavier Restrepo. Last week against Tampa, 10 targets, 3 catches, 33 yards. Not exactly ideal to only catch 30% of your targets, 33 yards among 5 different players. This week against Atlanta, 13 targets, 9 catches, 120 yards, and an awesome touchdown from Gunnar Helm. I mean, for Gunnar Helm, everybody's kind of looking at him as it's not if, but when he becomes the top tight end in terms of opportunity and production. You can say starting tight end. I think you're going to see a lot of Chigakonkwo because they're different types of players, but I think Gunnar Helm has shown that if it's not the beginning of the year, at some point in the year, he is going to be the top tight end in terms of the targets thrown his way and what he's able to do with those targets. And Helm, I mean, 2 guys dangling off of him. The picture is awesome where you can see that his eyes are covered and he still hauled it in. Those are the type of plays that the Titans need from these young pass catchers, and it was awesome to see Gunnar Helm have a good day. 4 catches, 48 yards in the score.
Well, he's the future of the tight end room because we don't know if Chig is going to be on this team next year or even in 2 years. We don't know. So Gunnar Helm is the future of the tight end room. That's why you took him in the 4th round. And I think there's something that him and Cam Ward, they're coming in at the same time. They're both drafted same time, and they get to develop together. Gunnar Helm was Quinn Ewers' safety blanket at Texas. I think he can serve as the same type of player for Cam Ward, and they get to grow together at the same time. And I think that is going to speak volumes to how he develops, both of them really. And again, we don't know the future of Chig. We kind of know what he is at this point, and we don't know the ceiling of Gunnar Helm quite yet.
Right. Chig, I think everybody kind of knows. Like, Chig is an NFL level tight end. That is a dude who will, even when he leaves Nashville, will likely be a productive player somewhere else. He's never going to be a Pro Bowl level tight end. He's never going to be talked about as a top 12 to 15 tight end in the league. Gunnar Helm, I'm not saying that is what he's going to be, but like you said, we just don't know. And I think from what we've seen so far, the way he uses what he has, like, he's not a tradey guy. It's not the biggest guy. He's not the fastest guy, but he just plays football. And for Gunnar Helm, he has enough of those traits to be good. Like we talk about Xavier Restrepo, that Restrepo he is not a tradey guy either. He's not fast. He's not big. He made plays in college, but you do need some sort of level of athleticism to succeed in the NFL because everybody that you're seeing on the defensive side is big and strong and fast. And Restrepo clearly doesn't have the traits to keep up. Gunnar has just enough, and he knows what to do with it. And I'm excited to see what he does this year. I think it may not be week 1 where we see him start to ascend and maybe be a guy who is Cam Ward's best friend. But I think by the end of the year, you're going to start to see that connection heat up. I would like to see Ward and Helm hook up a little bit more. And maybe this week we start to see, again, I don't really know how much Cam's going to play this weekend because it is the last game. And if he has one good drive, that might be enough for Brian Callahan to pull him and say, get ready for Denver. But I would like to see Helm get some targets from Cam Ward because we haven't really seen a ton of that so far. Obviously, it's happened in practice, but I would like to see them get on the same page, because I really do think that connection could be really important for Cam Ward's development, because a tight end it's a quarterback's best friend. Look at Marcus Mariota's first couple seasons. Delaney Walker was his best friend.
Oh, it was huge for him.
I would love to see that connection develop between Cam and Gunnar.
Here's the thing. So Chig is the best athlete in the room. I think Josh Wiley is probably one of the better blockers in the room. I think Gunnar Helm, he's not elite at anything, but he's very good at everything.
Yeah.
And that is exactly what you want. He got a lot of criticism because he didn't run a fast 40 time at the combine, but most people didn't see the picture of his ankle, and it was swelled up like a softball.
Right.
When he's healthy, he's a lot faster than you think. So Gunnar Helm is no doubt the future of this tight end room. No doubt.
615-737-1025 is our phone number if you have thoughts. Joey from Bellevue on our text line asking, in terms of Van Jefferson, why do the Titans need a third veteran wide receiver in the room? Lockett and Ridley are enough. They don't need Jefferson. He'll be taking snaps away from Oliver, DK, and Ellick. I 100% agree. And I think me and Parker basically said the same thing, is that, hey, there's a chance Van Jefferson makes the team just because of a lack of better options. Like, if you do keep 7, if the Titans are planning on keeping 7 wide receivers, then Van's going to be one of them. But I don't think Van Jefferson by week 8 or week 9 is going to be on the field all that much. Like, once Alec Iamaner and Chim DK start to, get accustomed to the league and the speed, and they start to make some plays, you're not going to have much of a need for Van Jefferson. And maybe this is a bold prediction, but I would guess that there might be more times once we get to November that Van Jefferson is a healthy scratch than he's actually on the field.
I just think we're going to see his production dwindle each week, and we're going to see Manor start to rise. And even a guy like Bryce Oliver, I could see Bryce Oliver. He may not lead the team in anything, but I could see Bryce Oliver, because he just continues to stick around and fight for his roster spot. I think he could get more production as the season ramps up too.
I don't want to overhype the young guys, because it is training camp and it's preseason, and there have been plenty of wide receivers who have come through Titans training camp. You're like, man, that could be a player, and they end up being your 6th wide receiver and do absolutely nothing. But it wouldn't shock me if you start the year with, first snap of the season, your 3 wide receivers on the field are Ridley, Lockett, and maybe Jefferson, just because they may not think Iamaner's ready for week 1. But by the end of the year, it wouldn't shock me if the wide receivers getting the most snaps are Ridley, Iamaner, Oliver. And DK, I think, is going to be more of a big play threat type of guy. Like, he's going to be your speedster who tries to take the top off the defense. I don't think he's going to be a guy who gets 5 to 7 targets a game. I think they're going to look to try and get him maybe a couple screen passes and a couple of big plays. And that's going to be it for Chim DK. But it wouldn't shock me if by the end of the year, you're looking at the top 3 wide receivers on the Titans as Ridley, Oliver, Iamaner.
What about Lockett?
He's 33. Like, I'd like Tyler Lockett, and I think he's going to be reliable, but it wouldn't shock me if he either doesn't make it through the season completely healthy, or if, the Titans just want to get a look at some of the younger guys and see what they can do.
I think he has one really good year left. I won't say really good. I think he has one good year left.
One like 500 to 700 yards
and that's perfect.
Season, that's what you signed him for.
That's perfect, because I've talked to Tyler Lockett, and he is just so cerebral about the game. He's smart. He just loves football. And that's a guy that you want in your wide receiver room. And he's already made a huge impact on guys like Alec Iamaner and Chim DK, Bryce Oliver, all of them.
I do love Tyler Lockett. Since the second he signed, has been all in, tweeting every single draft pick, and tweeted when Quandre Diggs signed. So at least, Tyler Lockett, that's going to be a good locker room guy, whether he is making an impact on the field or not.
I have a funny story about Tyler Lockett. So that he played at Kansas State. They played Oregon in the Fiesta Bowl. I think it was in 2013. I may be wrong on the year.
Sounds about right.
But we had a 5-minute conversation about DeAnthony Thomas. Tyler Lockett he's a football fan, like nerd. So he just loves football.
DeAnthony Thomas, that is an elite highlight reel from his college time at Oregon. It's not quite Tavon Austin, but it's close. It's pretty close. Kyle on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, says, if you watch Gunnar Helm play in college, you would know he had elite hands. That is a trait that is not to be overlooked. That is a good point. I was thinking traits more in terms of athletic traits, But I mean, knowing that Gunnar Helm is not going to drop a ton of passes is huge because Chig, not that he drops a ton of passes, but I always look at the preseason game against Minnesota 2 years ago as the inflection point for Chig, where coming out of his rookie year, there was a lot of hope for Chig of maybe this guy can be the next tight end for this team. And he had a good camp that year, but then the Minnesota preseason game, he had back-to-back drops, and it felt like the confidence just went away for Chig. I'm not saying that's the exact moment where things changed, but I just don't know if he ever got back to feeling like he was the guy again. And we'll see. We'll see if Chig ever is able to turn around. 615-737-1025. Reacting to the Titans win in Atlanta on Friday night to get to 1-1 in the preseason. If you care about preseason records, Titans will finish their preseason schedule at home against the Minnesota Vikings this weekend. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, we will continue to react to the Titans preseason game, including your thoughts on our text line after this here on Next Man Up, 1025 The Game. Next Man Up, 1025 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly. On this Monday, Titans get a preseason win on Friday night in Atlanta. Cam Ward, 2 for 7, 42 yards, although I don't think the box score tells you the whole story. Up and down day again for Cam Ward. He'll have one last chance in the preseason this weekend against the Minnesota Vikings. Talking about some of these young pass catchers for the Titans, I mentioned in the last segment that after a tough go of it against Tampa last week, only catching 3 of 10 targets among the 5, I would say, young guys. Bryce Oliver, not a rookie, but the other 4 are. They went 3 catches on 10 targets, 33 yards. This weekend, 9 catches on 13 targets, 120 yards, and Gunnar Helm with the touchdown. The wide receiver room is going to be very interesting. And Alec Iamaner, he looked good again. Obviously had the catch from Cam Ward, ran it out for 35 yards, had another catch from Brandon Allen that he turned upfield for about 12. So it was a good day for Iamaner. Don't know if we've seen enough from Chim DK. DK's been quiet. I think he's more of a developmental guy. And I mentioned maybe he's more of your speed, take the top off the defense type of player. Ron on our text line makes a good point. Ron texts in, after everything NWI did for this team, he should still be here. Our number 2 receiver, and would have been cheap to keep him. I do agree. I think NWI would be, if you could swap out Van Jefferson for NWI, I think you would. But NWI, I believe, did he sign a 3-year deal?
It was either that or 2-year deal.
Let me see. Because the way I'm thinking about it, the Titans really do need to develop young wide receivers because they haven't. Outside of A.J. Brown, can you really think of any other young wide receiver who the Titans have developed into even a starting level player over the last couple of years? Like, you took A.J. Brown the second round in 19. You took Treylon Burks after the trade in 2022. Outside of that, the Titans haven't taken a wide receiver in the first 2 days since then, right?
Nope. It's all been day 3. Racey McMath.
Right, Racey McMath, Des Fitzpatrick. So I wonder if maybe the thought was, and it was a 2-year deal. 2-year deal with Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. I wonder if maybe the Titans said, you know what? We don't want to commit to bringing him in and taking away snaps from some of the young guys we're going to bring in the draft. But it is just, it's tough to do that and then not invest in a receiver early. And I don't know where the Titans go next year in the draft because you have so many needs at so many important positions. And you need to get a young wide receiver for Cam Ward. Because as much as you hope Alec Iamaner turns into a starting level player, that's not going to be Cam Ward's running mate. Like, I don't ever see Alec Iamaner being a 1,200, 1,300 yard receiver in the NFL. I could be wrong, but it seems like he's more going to be your wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3. Calvin Ridley's not going to be here forever. You need to go out and find a running mate for Cam Ward, and you can't do that in the 4th round of the draft. You've got to do that in the 1st or the 2nd round. And they just haven't been able to do that. I wonder if maybe you have to go wide receiver early, but you also need an edge rusher and you need a cornerback. Like, it's not going to be easy, but you hope that some of these young guys you brought in can at least be long-term depth at wide receiver, but you do need a top-end guy at some point. Andrew on our text line says, I just cannot get on board with keeping Jefferson. Old with hardly any upside, and he's dropping passes now. I'm good. Rather lose with young players. Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of with you that if Van Jefferson's going to be blocking Alec Iamaner from getting reps this year, I don't really see the point of keeping him. Like, Van Jefferson's not going to be here next year, and they basically all but told us this team doesn't plan to compete this year. Why not see the young guys and try and build that rapport with Cam Ward? So maybe, like I said, if Alec Iamaner's ceiling is your wide receiver 2, let him be that heading into next year instead of only giving him half as many targets as he would have got because Van Jefferson's on the field.
I think that was the idea. And I actually told this to TD and a couple other guys when this was before Treylon Burks got hurt, but Chad Brinker said that Treylon Burks, before this was pre-injury, that they were not going to bring back Treylon Burks for a 5th year. That's what he said. So my idea was, okay, you could cut him now and eat $2 million. And that makes room for a guy like a Bryce Oliver, a James Prochet, maybe even a Xavier Restrepo. And by signing like Van Jefferson and Tyler Lockett to these one-year deals, they're not going to be around next year. And if your philosophy is draft, develop, retain, you want to keep these young guys and hopefully develop them into something that could help this football team win in the future.
Yeah, I thought it was funny with Traylon Burks. I believe it was like right after the draft, the press conference where they asked Brinker, like, the deadline for the fifth-year option is coming up. I assume you're not going to keep Traylon Burks for a fifth year. And Brinker goes, well, we're still working through that, but yeah, probably not. So Burks obviously is gone now. He's injured. But it just didn't make sense to keep guys who you know their ceiling. You know they're not going to be any better than they have been, and block the reps for a guy like Iamaner or DK, who knows, maybe they are just depth wide receivers in the long run, but you won't know until you get the opportunity out there on the field. I did want to mention about half an hour ago, the Titans announcing they signed depth defensive tackle TJ Smith. Graduated from Arkansas, spent time with the Chargers, Vikings, and Panthers. He's only played in 7 career games. So as the Titans have done pretty much all training camp long, churning the back end of the roster, they cut Keandre Coburn, and I'm wondering if maybe they regret that now, because there isn't a whole lot of depth behind Jeffrey Simmons and Tavondre Sweat. And we've seen that with the way the Titans have defended the run so far in the preseason without those two guys out there. I mean, it's James Lynch and a bunch of undrafted free agents. I'm not so sure the Titans feel great about the depth they have behind those two guys in the middle. 615-737-1025. Continuing to take your Titans reactions after they win their second preseason game against Atlanta on Friday night, 23-20. I do have some thoughts on the defense, and Cedric Gray especially, because I thought he was the highlight defensively outside of maybe Kendall Brooks with the pick six. I thought Cedric Gray was the guy who stood out. We will talk about that more later in the show, but it is Monday of the first week of college football in 2025. Everyone rejoice. We will talk about college football game week coming up next, and Farmageddon coming up in Dublin, and also another horrible idea from the Big Ten. That's coming up. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up here on 102.5 The Game. Second hour on this Monday. Next man up, 1025 The Game. Jake Lyman and Parker Kelly with you, broadcasting live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Coming up, 1045, Joseph Newgarden will join us live in studio, getting ready for the Borchetta Bourbon Music City Grand Prix coming up August 30th and 31st. So we will talk to the two-time Indy 500 winner coming up in about 45 minutes. But it is college football game week. Everyone rejoice. College football is officially back starting on Saturday with Farmageddon in Dublin, Ireland. No better place to have Iowa State and Kansas State play than across the pond in Dublin, 11 a.m. kick, and I cannot wait. Now, week 0, I know, is most of the games are the ones that will get you on the sickos committee on Twitter of like, God, what are some of the other games going on? Like Kansas and UNLV or something like that.
Yes. And I believe
Hawaii always has a game.
Hawaii and Stanford.
Right. Hawaii and Stanford. And I was very disappointed, as the college football sicko that I am, that game is not at like 11:59 Eastern time like it usually is. Like usually that Hawaii game is right before the clock strikes midnight, because that's what, like 4:00 in the afternoon Hawaii time. But instead,
something like that.
It's actually just a 6:00 kick, 6:30.
Yep.
So
five total games for week 0. UNLV plays Idaho State.
Okay.
Fresno State and Kansas. Sam Houston, Western Kentucky. A good old Conference USA matchup right there. And then the nightcap, Stanford at Hawaii, 6:30 CBS.
I mean, I'm excited for Farmageddon because that is actually an important game. You've got 2 top 25 teams. It's rare to get a top 25 matchup in week 0. And it has actual implications on the Big 12 title game in August. Like, those two teams could be fighting for a spot in the Big 12 championship because of how good they are. And this game in Dublin, Ireland on August 23rd could be the difference between one team making it and one team not. So it is actually an important game, a top 25 matchup in week 0. But I think college football should take more advantage of week 0. I feel like there is an opportunity. There is a void in football fans' hearts at this point in the year, and everybody just wants good football. I'm not saying you need a full slate, because that would be tough to do. Obviously, everybody would have to move their fall camp schedules around, and it might be a mess if you tried to get 20 games to be played in week 0. But could we get better games in week 0? I feel like this is an opportunity that college football is missing out on. You get one good game a year in week 0, and it's the one in Dublin. I would love if every power conference rotated teams and had one game in week 0. So imagine this week you had 4 games to look forward to that were actually important and weren't Kansas, Fresno State, instead of just the one. Let's say we had Iowa State, Kansas State, and we had Georgia Tech, Syracuse, and we had Arkansas, Florida, and, Iowa and Illinois. If you had all 4 of those games, I think people would lock in on week 0 and you stagger them. I just think college football is missing out on the opportunity to make week 0 actually an event where people lock in and say, week 0, we've got 10 hours of football to sit down and watch, instead of, all right, well, we'll watch the game in Dublin because that's actually a meaningful game. Maybe we'll throw Kansas and Fresno State on in the background. I think that
this
there's
is going
an
to be a fun
opportunity.
back and forth right
Go
here.
ahead.
This is going to be a fun back and forth. So loyal listeners of the Air Raid will know that, yes, I'm excited for Iowa State, Kansas State. I will watch week 0 because, like you, I am a college football sicko. However, I think the idea of week 0 is kind of silly because it is not, to me, at least, in my humble opinion, it is not the official start of the college football season. I consider the first Saturday of week 1 the official start. It's like an appetizer to the main course. I think that if that's how you view it, that is perfect. May I also present another idea of kicking off the college football season in week 0 with Army-Navy, because the Army-Navy game is getting overshadowed by the college football playoff starting a little bit earlier.
It's a good point. I don't know if you could go away from the tradition of that, of like, that's always the last game of the college football regular season. And I don't know if you want to make it the first. I could get behind that. I think they're missing an opportunity here to get college football fans locked in, because they don't have to be good games. Like the games that I just listed off as examples of what those power conference games would be: Georgia Tech, Syracuse, or Iowa, Illinois. Like, they're fine games. Those are good teams. But would you watch that game if it's sandwiched at 3:30 between, 10 games at noon and 10 games at 8? Probably not. But if it is a standalone game and you're watching Georgia Tech, Syracuse at 4:00 this Saturday, people would be locked in. I just think
they would.
I think it's a missed opportunity. Ricky on our text line says no one cares about Iowa State or Kansas State. I agree, but there's no football, so everybody's going to watch it.
I care, because the Big 12 margins are so slim. Like the difference between let's say a 9-3 and a 5-7 in the Big 12 is incredibly razor thin.
But
there was a 9-way tie for going to the conference championship game. Was it week 11?
No, it was crazy. It was. But if this game was happening in week 5, would you watch it?
Yes.
Probably not.
I'm just a sicko. You put me in a separate category.
I'm saying, like, let's look at the week 5 schedule. I'm just picking a random day. And let's say it's going on at the same time as LSU, Ole Miss, and Auburn, A&M, Indiana, Iowa, Tennessee, Mississippi State, Oregon, Penn State. Like, let's say it's going on that day. Are you really carving out time in your schedule to watch Iowa State, Kansas State? No. But because it's week 0, people will watch. And I bet the ratings on that Dublin game are great because it is a standalone game. I'm just asking to add more of them. Add more. Do 11 a.m. one game. And I guess we can go Eastern time to make it standard. Do a noon kick, a 3:30 kick, a 7:30 kick, and give me a late night. Maybe you can only get away with 3, because they should all be standalone games if you're going to do this. Maybe you do the Hawaii game late or something like that. I think it's a missed opportunity, because we're all starved for meaningful football. Like, I'm sorry. I enjoyed watching the first quarter of the Titans preseason game because of Cam Ward on Friday night, but having to watch Trevor Siemian play down the stretch, T-Money Wiggle, like, that doesn't fulfill my football needs.
You're telling me you weren't locked into that fourth quarter grudge match?
I gotta say, like, it was better than watching Tim Boyle, but it wasn't. It did not, satisfy my hunger for football. We need a full week 0 slate, not 20 games, but give us 3 or 4 that actually are entertaining to watch. Because I'm sorry, Kansas and Fresno State might as well be a preseason game to me. Like, that's not going to get me to lock in. Stanford, Hawaii, maybe there's a chance I watch some of that.
I'll be watching just because it's football.
But but that's what I'm saying, is like, a lot of people will watch just because it's football, but imagine how many people would watch if it was good football.
They're talking about moving the regular season up if they're going to expand this thing to 24, 28 teams like the Big Ten suggested. So maybe
we're getting into that.
Oh, yeah. Maybe this idea does come to fruition. Who knows?
That's just my thought. We're 5 days away from football starting. I feel like they could do a better job of opening the season with a bang instead of, all right, we got one decent game for you, and then a bunch of games you would never even think to watch if they were going on when there's 30 other games going on at the same time. I can't wait for week 1, because week 1 is absolutely loaded. I mean, I'm going to be over at Vanderbilt for the Charleston Southern game, but the games going on that day in week 1, and actually I clicked the wrong week here. Week 1, you've got obviously the big one, Texas, Ohio State, big noon kickoff in Columbus. For local fans, Tennessee, Syracuse going on at the same time. That's going to be a dual screen opening day. Then you've got Alabama, Florida State, and Thomas Castellano says that they're going to beat the Tide, so watch out. And then you got the late night games of LSU and Clemson, and there was another good one, wasn't there? Oh, no, the next day
You're talking about week 1?
Yes. Week 1, you get LSU Clemson as the
Yep.
primetime game. And then the next day, you get Notre Dame Miami.
That's going to be awesome.
Which is
I can't wait.
going to be phenomenal.
And I think that Monday night game can be sneaky good too, because nobody knows what to expect out of North Carolina.
Right.
And TCU is also a total wild card as well, but they have a really, really good quarterback in Josh Hoover. So,
right. And you get to watch Bill Belichick's debut
as
a standalone
game. I think game day is going to be there. They're going to be doing some college football pregame show. I don't think it's officially game day, but the game day crew will be there.
Don't sleep on Virginia Tech, South Carolina too. I'm just kidding.
Kyron Jones season, baby. Let's go.
I think South Carolina wins that game by 2 touchdowns. Richie from White House says, week 0 of college football to me is like saying it's opening day for baseball when you already had at least 2 teams start their season overseas. They should just say week 0 is technically the start of college football. That's what I'm saying. If you're going to do week 0, do it right. Like, there's no real point for week 0 outside of, I guess, the travel stuff. Like, if they go to Dublin, you want to have a bye and you want to be able to recover from the travel. And Hawaii, typically Hawaii will travel, like they came to Nashville 2 years ago. It's like, all right, Hawaii traveling to Nashville, you probably don't want them to have to play the next week. But if you're going to do week 0, let's do it right. Let's have games that actually matter outside of the one game overseas in Dublin. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. If you have thoughts on this, on the Titans, let us know. Our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. There was an idea put out in college football this week that is absolutely horrible. The Big Ten continuing this illustrious streak of bad ideas, and we will get to it coming up next. It is college football game week. We're talking some college football here in hour number 2 of the program. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Be a hero and save a life this Wednesday at the 12th Annual Williamson County Battle of the Badges Blood Drive. The drive will be held at Brentwood Concord Road Library Wednesday from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. 1025 The Game will be on hand from noon to 2 with swag to give away and a chance to win free concert tickets. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up. 1025 The Game. It is week 0 of college football. We have college football less than about 5 days away, actually. It'll be kicking off 5 days from 11 a.m. Cannot wait for Farmageddon in Dublin, Kansas State, Iowa State. But the rest of the schedule, not great. We just went through maybe an idea to fix week 0. The Big Ten, unnecessarily, is trying to fix the college football playoff again. They have already tried to go to 16 teams and come up with, as I will say, a horrible model of 4-4-2-2. Parker Kelly will disagree, but that's a conversation for another day. Let's talk about the other horrible idea the Big Ten had, which is a 24 or 28 team playoff. And first of all, I just don't understand the point. Like, why do you need 28 teams in the playoff? But here is the model that they have. 7 auto bids for the Big Ten and the SEC, 5 for the ACC and the Big 12. 2 more auto bids for non-Power 4 champs. So the next 2 highest ranked non-Power 4 champions would get auto bids, and 2 at large. So here is what the bracket would look like. Thank you to Reddit CFB on X for putting this together of what last year's bracket would look like in a 28-team playoff. You would get primetime matchups such as Indiana-Louisville, Clemson-BYU, a Mountain West matchup of Boise State and UNLV in a bracket for a national championship. Syracuse would be in. Colorado would have gotten in. You would have gotten to see Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders in there. Army, Alabama would have been a matchup. And you would have also seen Baylor get into the field, Iowa, Tennessee, Iowa State, South Carolina. I mean, I just want to know if there's anybody out there, 615-737-1025, who thinks this is a good idea, please text in. Because, I mean, I get it. It's all about the money. And doing this would obviously make more money for all of the conferences because the ACC would get 5 teams in. That helps their TV deal, all that kind of stuff. But why? Like, what would the point be of letting these teams in? It's like, all right, does Louisville really need to, as the 25th best team in the country, do we need to see Louisville play in a national championship bracket? I don't think so.
The fact that we're spending a segment on this just gives this more time than it deserves because this idea is absolutely absurd. And this is what happened for all the expansionists out there that originally wanted this in the first place. Once they expanded to 12, they were never going to stop. It went from 4 to all of a sudden we're going to 12. They didn't even consider 6 or 8. We just went straight to 12. And not even a year later, we're already talking about going to 14, 16, and now this 24 or 28. And believe it or not, I'm about to present a mind-boggling idea. Sometimes the best decisions that are made don't always warrant making more money.
It's fair. And I think 12 already, like you said, they didn't go from 4 to 6. They didn't go from 4 to 8. They went from 4 to 12. I think 12 is perfect. You're already kind of on the borderline of some teams are getting in that really don't have any reason to be able to compete for a national championship. But 28 is absolutely insane. I know that the FCS does 24, I believe. So the FCS does 24, but the FCS is also a little bit different where, you know, you don't have all the money going into this. And it's like if North Dakota State, who is the superpower of the FCS, has made the playoff 15 straight years. So look at some of the Blue Bloods. Would Alabama really ever have to worry about missing the playoff? Like, let's look through. When is the last time Alabama wasn't in the top 7 in the SEC? Like,
been a long time.
I mean, I really don't know if there's been a time since Saban, maybe Saban's like first couple years, that they haven't finished in the top 7 in the SEC, which would just get you automatically in. And they would do away with conference championship games. It is the Big Ten continues to astound me at how they can make the most horrible ideas. I don't get how you went from everybody's kind of on 16, you're on the fence about 16. It's like, all right, well, if we did 16, we'd have to do it the right way and find the right model. And the Big Ten's like, why do 16 when we can do 28? And
why do 28 when we could do 64? And
if we did 28, we get superpowers such as Syracuse and UNLV and BYU and Army and Baylor. They all get to go play in a national championship bracket.
Here's the thing that annoys me. Part of competing for a national championship means that you have to do something hard in the regular season, at least beating the teams that are on your schedule. We're talking about a Baylor team who was good last year. They weren't great. They were fine. They went 8-4 in the regular season in the Big 12. And you're telling me that warrants a spot to compete for a national championship? Are we kidding?
It's ridiculous. And it's funny. Actually, I didn't read the full thread here from Reddit CFB. UNLV would have been an at-large bid. Like UNLV wasn't an auto bid for a conference championship.
A team that went 10-3 before their bowl game
in the Mountain West, which is crazy. Apparently Ohio, Jacksonville State, and Marshall were the other non-Power 4 conference champs that were left out. Unranked Louisville, Iowa, Baylor, and Michigan all get in due to the auto bids. When is there ever a scenario where the 5th best ACC team is deserving of playing for a national championship?
There isn't. I looked at this preseason rankings. I think there are 9 teams that are capable of actually winning a national championship this year. 9. And that's being generous because of NIL, transfer portal. It's kind of even the playing field just a little bit. There are 9 teams, I think. They're not 28. They're not 24.
Yeah. I mean, it's college football is so top heavy. Like the NFL, honestly, 14, I thought 12 was great when they were at 12. But I get it. You expand the playoffs. It's fine. To 14. But the college football, as much as the Big Ten wants to tell you, oh, well, almost 50% of the teams in the NFL make the playoffs. Why are we only putting in 10% of college football? Well, it's because college football is top heavy. And the worst team in college football and the best team in college football, the gap there is like 50 points.
Yeah,
like
they're not even playing the same sport anymore.
The spread on that game would be probably 45 or 50 points. If you picked, is it what? Bowling Green might be the worst, or Kent State, something like that might be the worst FBS school. You match them up with Texas, the spread on that game is going to be in the 40s. But in the NFL, I get it. There's less teams, but like you put the Titans on the field with the Eagles, the spread's probably 11 or 12.
And here's the thing: there are 36 teams in FBS. And it used to be before NIL and transfer portal that at least those group of 5 teams, like we saw, like the Boise States, with Kellen Moore and things like that. But those were rare situations, but at least the playing field was a little bit more even. UCF with Blake Bortles. Nowadays, it's Power 4 and group of 5, and heck, even SEC and Big 10, they're so far above the ACC and Big 12, they're not even playing the same sport.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And the Big 10, I think the Big 10 obviously knows that they are falling behind the SEC. They understand that if they don't do something to lock in their position, it's going to be the SEC and everyone else. Right now, I think it's close. The SEC is obviously deeper, but the Big Ten has won the last 2 national championships. So the Big Ten is at least in the conversation with the SEC right now. As it stands right now, if nothing else changes, I don't think the Big Ten is going to be in that same conversation 5 years from now. And I think they know that. So Tony Petitti is trying to see if he can leverage their position right now into getting as many automatic bids to the college football playoff as they possibly can. So it was like, all right, we want 4 in the 16, but we could get 7 if we go to 28. Why not do that?
This is such a money grab because the Big Ten is top heavy. Like you look at layer 1, tier 1 of the Big Ten, you have Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon, maybe Michigan, depending on who you're debating with. But who's tier 2?
I mean, there are schools that you hope take a step. And like Illinois is a top
Illinois?
15 team right now, but do you think Illinois is going to be a consistent top 15 team? Probably not.
No.
But I think the Big Ten is hoping that some of these teams that have been good in the past, USC, UCLA, Washington, Wisconsin, Iowa, I think they're Nebraska. Like, I think they're hoping that that tier can start to rise. But like right now, you match up that tier with the second tier of the SEC, which is probably includes LSU, Tennessee, Florida, Texas A&M. Like that's it. It's night and day difference. The top four may be competitive, but the next 5 to 7, the SEC dominates. So it's a money grab, and the Big Ten just continues to make up bad ideas for the future of the college football playoff. The good news is I don't think any of them are going to go through, because at the end of the day, if the SEC doesn't want it, it's not going to happen. And I don't think the SEC would have any reason to agree to a 28-team playoff with 7 auto bids. Like the SEC, there's a chance in a 16-team playoff they could get close to 7 in. So what would be the point of capping themselves there with only 2 at-large bids? Josh in the YouTube chat says, in the conversation, the SEC hasn't won the last 2 national championships. Josh, it's 2 years. It's a sample size. Like, yeah, Ohio State and Michigan had the best 2 teams the last 2 years. But if you're looking at the overall composition of the conferences, the SEC is way deeper. And
who's won more national championships since 2000?
Right. Like, let's wait over the next 10 to 15 years and see how many more national championships the SEC wins than the Big Ten. I understand I'm getting into the SEC is undefeated in hypothetical games, but like, you look at the way the conferences are trending right now, 10 years from now, I don't think we'll be having the conversation of the SEC and the Big Ten are the power 2. It's going to be pretty much just the SEC. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. If you have thoughts, we are going to be joined live in studio by Joseph Newgarden as he prepares for the final 2 races of the IndyCar season coming up in about 15 minutes. Excited for that as we prepare for the Music City Grand Prix coming up in just under 2 weeks right here in Nashville. We'll continue our thoughts on college football coming up next. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up here on 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 1025 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you. Coming up in the next segment, Joseph Newgarden going to join us in studio talking about the Borchetta Bourbon Music City Grand Prix coming up in just under 2 weeks, August 30th and 31st, out at the Nashville Super Speedway. So very excited to talk with Joseph coming up next. We're on the topic of college football because it is week 0. We are 5 days away from college football coming back. It's been a long offseason, but excited to actually have real meaningful football starting this weekend, although it's only 5 games and really only one of them matters in the overall landscape of college football, but we'll take what we can get. We were having the conversation about the Big Ten's horrible idea to expand the college football playoff to either 24 or 28 teams. Justin from Greenbrier makes a good point. Football is not basketball. You have a sport that is more dependent on team than individuals. It is a more difficult sport to compete at the highest levels. Please leave it the heck alone. 100% agree. March Madness and the NCAA tournament works because basketball is a sport where all it takes is one guy getting hot at the right time, or an off shooting day from the better team on paper, or one team shoots 60% from the floor. It's right place, right time. Any team can beat any other team on any given day. We've seen it. 16 seeds have beaten 1 seeds in the NCAA tournament. Football is such a strength sport, like a brute strength in college football of the biggest and strongest and most athletic players play at a certain type of school, like in Alabama or a Texas.
It boils down to one-on-one matchups.
Right. If you match up in Alabama against
Jacksonville State, it's just not going to be a fair fight.
And I understand, you're not expecting the 32nd or the 28th seed to beat the number 1 seed, but looking at the bracket, if 7 is playing 26, that's a matchup on paper that is so much wider than anything we see in the NCAA basketball tournament, because it really is that much of a difference from the elite of the elite college football programs to the above average football programs. And a 28-team playoff would just be leading to a ton of blowouts and teams that really have no business playing in that tournament getting a chance to. I understand the idea of it keeps fan bases engaged. And as a fan of a program that likely in a 12-team playoff may never make it, as a Virginia Tech fan, there's a decent chance that the Hokies, at least in the near future, have no chance of playing in a 12-team playoff. They had 0 chance of playing in a 14 playoff. I don't care enough about, the keeping those fan bases engaged to have a 28-team playoff just so some teams can feel like they're involved in it and then get blown out in the playoffs. Keep it at 12. I think that keeps enough fan bases with hope. And that's all you need. You need fan bases to have hope of, hey, if everything went right for us this year, we could go 9-3 or 10-2 and maybe sneak into the playoffs. That's all you need. You don't need 8-4 Big 12 teams getting in to go play in the college football playoff.
And that's kind of like for some of these programs, 9-3 and a bowl win is considered a success. There are just some programs out there that it's just not the standard for you to be competing for a national championship. Like Vanderbilt, if Vanderbilt went 9-3, potentially could compete for a playoff spot, I consider that a win for Vanderbilt because they're not a national championship relevant team.
Yes.
Despite Diego Pavia's comments.
Diego says that they can win it. And if you don't believe, then no one else is going to. But you're right that it used to be in the BCS era, teams that finished 6th in the country were proud to go play in the Sugar Bowl or the Orange Bowl or whatever BCS Bowl. It was an honor to go play in those games, even if it had no implication on the national championship.
Indiana making the playoffs this year. That's a success.
Right.
Because Indiana's not a football power. They're a basketball school.
Right. That was a huge deal. And you look 2 years ago, although I do think Florida State, they got a raw deal with the playoff committee leaving them out. And I still will stand on, if they didn't know that the playoff was moving to 12 the next year, Florida State would have been in, because it would have been a horrible precedent to set that if you win all of your games, you don't get in. but they did it. And Florida State could not have cared less about going to play. It was the Sugar Bowl, right? Against Georgia?
Orange Bowl.
Orange Bowl.
Yep.
They went and played the Orange Bowl against Georgia, played a bunch of backups, and got blown out.
Yep.
Like, the Orange Bowl used to mean something. I remember when I was a kid, I was locked in with Tyrod Taylor and Andrew Luck playing in the Orange Bowl when Virginia Tech played Stanford. Like, that was a big deal to play in that game.
That's the thing. This term, meaningless bowl games, came out of nowhere over the last couple of years. That didn't used to be a thing.
It's because teams set their sights when the playoff became more attainable.
Yeah.
It made the other bowl games feel meaningless.
Exactly.
And if you go to 28, you might as well just end all bowl games. Why have bowl games if you're having 28 teams make the playoff? It's ridiculous.
It's because when that playoffs became introduced, that's all people in the marketing, the people that are marketing this did a great job, because you remember that "who's in" slogan?
Right.
That's all the people cared about, and they didn't care about these other bowl games. And that's when the term meaningless bowl game started to come around, and it drives me absolutely crazy.
Yeah. And I want to say I don't think a 24 to 28 team college football playoff will ever happen, but at this point, nothing would surprise me. Like, I think there was, if you had asked 15 years ago, do you think there'll ever be a 12-team college football playoff? People would have thought you were crazy, because it had always, I mean, for a while there were no national championship games. It was just everybody play their bowl games and the writers are going to pick somebody. And then you went to a BCS national championship game. I think a 12-team playoff would have sounded crazy 15 years ago. So I won't say it'll never happen. I really hope it doesn't. I don't see the need for expansion unless this revenue sharing really does even the playing field. I don't think it will. Like,
it won't. The rich are going to become richer.
Right. The rich schools are going to find a way to pay their players as much as they possibly can. Right. So it's not going to even the playing field. But if it did, and you felt like all the power conference teams were not separated by that much, like, obviously there's always going to be a separation of the classes in college football. But like, if the gap closed a little bit, maybe it would make sense. But with the gap the way it is between the best team in the country and the 27th best team in the country, there's absolutely no need for it.
What's the hard part about listening to the fans? Because the fans are what drive the sport, and obviously the players, the ones actually playing the games. Like, do you think that the fans are all against this idea? What's so hard about just listening to them?
Yep.
They're the ones that drive the people that put money in your pockets because they're watching the games. They may stop if you keep doing this and ruin the sport.
We can all be thankful, though, that the NCAA basketball tournament's not expanding, at least for now.
At least for now.
At least for now. It's staying at 68. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We'll have more to get into with the Titans in hour number 3 of the program today. But coming up next, Joseph Newgarden is going to join us as he prepares for the final 2 races of the IndyCar season, including the Borchetta Bourbon Music City Grand Prix coming up in just under 2 weeks here in Nashville. We'll talk to Joseph Newgarden live in studio coming up next. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up here on 102.5 The Game. Wrapping up hour number 2 here on Next Man Up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you today. Titans are out on the practice field right now, coming off their long road trip, 10 days between Tampa and Atlanta. So we'll get back more into the Titans coming up. Again, Joseph Newgarden going to join us live in studio. We are awaiting his arrival. Excited to talk with Joseph about the Music City Grand Prix, which is coming up in under 2 weeks. Going to be exciting out there at Nashville Super Speedway. Obviously moved from the street setting last year. Newgarden, a 2-time Indy 500 champion, 2-time Indy Series champion as well, and a native to Nashville. So excited to talk to him. Again, Titans out on the practice field. And PK, we're going to get into this a little bit more in the final hour of the show, but I did want to bring up Cedric Gray looked awesome on Friday night. And I think you feel a lot better about that inside linebacker room than you did heading into training camp. Like Cody Barton, I think everybody knew he was a savvy veteran guy, but he's really flashed. And he looks like he's going to be a reliable player in the middle of that defense. And then it was a lot of question marks of, all right, well, you got a lot of young guys in that room. Who's going to step up? And it looks like both James Williams and Cedric Gray have taken a big step forward. And that trio, as long as everybody stays healthy, makes you feel a lot better about what would have been considered maybe the weakest position group for the Titans heading into the training camp.
Right. Talk about making the most out of your opportunity. I love the fact that James Williams has been starting next to Cody Barton throughout training camp, got the start versus Tampa Bay, but then they switched because there's a quote-unquote battle going on, and now it may actually be a battle. Cedric Gray getting the start next to Cody Barton in Atlanta, had the sack, had the interception, got negated because of the penalty, but the coaches are definitely still going to look at that. He made the most of the opportunity. James Williams, what I love about him is it's his second year fully playing linebacker, was a safety in college, lost a little bit of body fat, put on some muscle. He looks a lot leaner, quicker. He just looks the part. And now Cedric Gray, and that controversy is going to be exciting to watch now.
Right. Cedric Gray, I mean, that play on the sack on the first drive where he just blew up the running back. I mean, absolutely lit him up and ended up finishing off the sack. Do have to say, and we'll talk a little more about Femi Oladejo. Femi, that was one of his better reps too in the game. I don't think it was a great game from Femi Oladejo. There were some plays where I think he would want back, but definitely flashed more in this game than he did in week 1 of the preseason. But Cedric Gray, great play on the blitz, and the interception got negated by offsetting penalties.
Right.
But he read that play like a book. I mean, Easton Stick basically hit him right between the numbers on that play. So really like what we saw out of Cedric Gray. He's a guy who there was a lot of excitement for when he got drafted. I mean, he was an early 4th-round pick, if not, again, the top pick in the 4th round.
Yeah, some had him going day 2, and he ended up slipping to round 4.
So he went early on day 3, missed a lot of time with injury last year, so that it made it difficult that you really didn't get a good look at him in his rookie season. But it looks like he can be a reliable piece on the field for you. And again, it was against backups. So do have to preface that with the Titans still have not seen a first-team offense in the preseason outside of joint practices. So that is a caveat there. But I really like what we've seen out of Cedric Gray and James Williams. And I like that they're different types of players. Like Cedric Gray feels more like your stock inside linebacker, kind of Cody Barton-ish. But James Williams is your, freak of nature kind of guy when it comes to his ability to play the linebacker position. We are now pleased to be joined in studio here by Joseph Newgarden as we prepare for the Music City Grand Prix coming up in just under 2 weeks out at the Nashville Super Speedway. Joseph Newgarden, 2-time Indy 500 champion, 2-time IndyCar Series champion, joining us live in studio. And as we get him all set up here, Joseph, thanks so much for taking some time with us today. Excited to talk to you about what should be a great week of racing coming up at Nashville Super Speedway.
Dude, I love this. I flew through the door into the seat right into the show. This is the way to do it.
I love it.
Good.
I love it. Yeah. We're excited to have you on. You come in and we can jump right into it here. I mean, obviously as a Nashville native, this has to be exciting for you. Get to finish the season in your hometown. I'm sure you're going to have plenty of friends and family in attendance. Just how exciting is it for the third straight year now to get to race in your hometown.
Yeah, it's very exciting. Look, I love being here in Nashville. I used to go to this race as a kid when I was 11, 12 years old. I watched races at the super speedway, watched Indy cars, was always blown away by their capability. That's kind of why I fell in love with racing and certainly open wheel type cars like an Indy car does. It's just fast. It seems almost impossible in some ways when drivers are driving them. And so it's a great race to go watch. And I want to perform here. This is my hometown, as you said, and have not won a race here yet. We were close last year. We were third.
Right.
Thought we were going to get it done. We lost it in the last minute there. But we should have a good shot here. And we're definitely going to have enough people out there. There's no shortage in interest when you're at your hometown.
I'm sure it must have been fun the first year to be able to race down the streets of Nashville. I mean, going down up and down Broadway, but out of the super speedway now, what makes that so special as you go into year 2 racing at the Oval out there?
Yeah, the great thing about Indy cars, I love both. Really, you could divide it almost into 4 track types. It's really 3. You have ovals, you have street circuits, and then you have permanent road courses. And the downtown track was a street circuit, so it was temporary. This oval track at the super speedway is its own animal. It's more like the Indy 500. It's a little shorter than that. It's kind of an intermediate style oval, not fully a short oval. So right in that middle ground between a short oval and a super speedway like the Indianapolis 500. But they're all so entertaining, in different ways. Like, it doesn't really matter what type of IndyCar race you go to. You're in for a show. The super speedway is, as it sounds, it's high speed, high stakes. You want to get 2 lanes working. If you can get your car working up in the second lane, you are going to be on another level at that track. That's what it's going to take. You don't want to be stuck on the bottom of the racetrack. You're somebody that's just going to be passed on the day if that's where your car works. So you got to work that out. You got to figure out the lane usage. Downtown was chaotic. That's what happens on a street circuit. You're kind of bouncing in between these concrete walls. So the 2 different driving styles, but both super fun to drive and very fun to watch. So yeah, like I said, I used to grow up watching the super speedway, and to win a race there would be pretty cool.
Well, with all your success, Nashville and Tennessee have embraced you. I mean, naming July 31st Joseph Newgarden Day.
Isn't that crazy?
I mean, crazy, winning Tennessean Athlete of the Year. How much have you enjoyed seeing your hometown and your home state really embrace you with all the success that you've had?
Well, everybody's been overly kind. I've been very fortunate to have the career I've had. I think it's year 14. I'm almost losing track at this point.
I believe that's what I've got here.
It goes by quick. It goes by very, very quick. I started in 2012 was my rookie year in IndyCar. And I've had just immense opportunity and good fortune, worked with a lot of really phenomenal people in the industry. I've learned so much. I love seeing the kids that come out to the track now. I see more kids bringing their parents out to the track these days than vice versa, which is really cool to see. I've seen a surge in motorsport, certainly motorsport popularity, and not just around the country, but in Nashville as well. And I always tell the kids that there's so much to be involved in when you think about motorsports. You don't have to just drive the car. Of course, if you want to drive the car, that's an avenue you can take. It's a tough avenue. It's hard to get into this sport and figure it out and get the opportunities and work your way to the top. But there's so much that goes into the engineering side of a racing team. The preparation, the mechanic side. There's a plethora of opportunities to get involved in motorsports, and in the media side too. There's just a lot that goes into it. So if you like motorsports, you like racing, there's many different avenues that you can take to be involved in it. And so I love seeing the interest these days and more kids that we see at the track. And I just want to see it grow, obviously.
You've got the Team Penske shirt on over there. Your 9th year with Team Penske. A big win for your team last week with Will Power taking the checkered. How much momentum can that give you guys with only 2 races left this season, and then as you prepare for next year as well?
Yeah, it's been big. I hate to use the term rebuilding. I don't know what other term I would use though. I feel like that's what we need to use for this year. It's been a unique and odd year for us on this team. We've had so much speed at a lot of tracks that we've gone to, and we almost have nothing to show for it. Thank goodness we have a little glimmer of hope. We finally got a result on the board for the team last weekend in Portland. That win for my teammate Will Power was a big deal. It is a team effort. We have all been working to improve our road course performance. So I told you, we break up our tracks, 3 track styles: ovals, street courses, road courses. Street courses and ovals, we've had great cars. We've had great performance. And then the road courses, for whatever reason, And we're kind of digging into why. It's not just it was a mystery for a bit. Why are we weak there? That was really the only place we've struggled. And I feel like we're starting to turn the corner there. But ovals have been a strong point for us. We were great at the Indy 500. We just, didn't have luck on our side. I hate using that term too, but sometimes it just comes down to this thing called timing or luck or however you want to describe it. But I feel confident in these last two events coming up. We're Milwaukee this weekend. We're Nashville the weekend after that. I think we can close the year on a high note and then really rebuild into the offseason and hopefully come out firing. Like I know that we can, like we've shown in a lot of points this year. We just don't have the results to necessarily prove it.
Joseph Newgarden joining us live in studio. The Bruschetta Bourbon Music City Grand Prix coming up less than 2 weeks away, August 30th and 31st, out at Nashville Super Speedway. What can fans look forward to, and what's going to be a great couple of days of racing out there as you guys wrap up your season?
Oh my gosh, anything and everything. Look, if you've never been to an IndyCar race, give it a shot. It's Labor Day weekend. It's tons of fun. Bring your kids, bring the family, bring your brother, your sister, whoever. It's 2 days of action. So Saturday is our practice qualifying day. The great thing about IndyCar, you can buy a ticket for a seat, or you can get a seat ticket, and you can also get a paddock pass. They're pretty affordable. If you get a paddock pass, you can basically come inside the pit area and go anywhere. You can talk to any teams. You can, walk right up to the drivers, get autographs. I mean, there's really nothing off limits. I mean, there's a couple places you can't go, but you almost essentially can go anywhere. And that's the great thing about IndyCar is the access that you get. So get your seat, get a paddock pass, come check out the action, watch a great race. There's, the fan zone. There's all sorts of stuff to get into. Just go to musiccitygp.com, and I think you'll have a great time. So come out for Labor Day weekend.
Joseph, thanks for taking some time with us. Really excited to cheer you on. Hopefully can get a hometown win coming up in a couple of weeks. Bruschetta Bourbon Music City Grand Prix coming up Labor Day weekend out at Nashville Super Speedway.
Thanks so much, man.
Joseph Newgarden joins us live in studio. We'll take a quick break. Be right back. Your next man up on 102.5 The Game.
Good.
Final hour, next man up, 1025 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you on this Monday morning, broadcasting live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Awesome stuff from Joseph Newgarden joining us live in studio as he prepares for the final couple weeks of the IndyCar season, including the Borchetta Bourbon Music City Grand Prix coming up Labor Day weekend right here in Nashville, August 30th and 31st. Very happy to have him in studio, but let's get back to the Titans here. Titans coming off a win on Friday night. Hooray! Titans won a preseason game. They are now 1-1. Their final preseason game coming up on Saturday against Minnesota. And then you look ahead to the regular season, week 1 against Denver coming up on September 7th. Couple of other things I wanted to get to from Friday night's game. We talked about Cedric Gray and James Williams in the last segment a little bit. I think that draft class from 2024 actually is starting to come around. You know, Rand Carthon had plenty of flaws as a GM. More than were acceptable for him to keep his job, clearly. I mean, you look at the free agency that he had in his first year. You bring in, I mean, you trade for L'Jarius Sneed. That's the big one, but really didn't bring in a whole lot of quality players. You bring in Calvin Ridley, but that was about it. And then the drafts, you look back at the 2023 draft, and there's not a whole lot that came out of that. Like Skoronski's starting to come around a little bit. But the 2024 draft class is actually starting to look like it could be the Titans' best draft class since 2019. Very, very low bar, by the way. But J.C. Latham, so far, his move back to right tackle seems like it's been a success. It's only the preseason, it's only training camp. But from what everybody said, the way he's transformed his body and the way he's approached right tackle seems like he is going to be a stalwart there for a long time. T'Vondre Sweat, you like what you saw in year 1. I'm a little concerned about how little he's been on the practice field so far in training camp. I understand that, you know, he had the abdominal issue, and then I guess he got his tonsils out or something like that and hasn't been able to be on the field. We'll see if maybe he returns soon. But later on in the draft, there were a lot of question marks of, all right, you took Cedric Gray, Jarvis Brownlee, and James Williams. Those 3 are now actually starting to look like players for you. They're not all going to be hits. Jaquan Jackson looks like he's going to be cut ahead of his second NFL season. But if you can get 4 defensive starters and you're starting right tackle out of that draft, again, it's a very low bar, but you start to feel better about the depth that draft is building, because you had so many drafts that just built absolutely nothing. You got nothing out of the 2020, 21, and 22 drafts outside of Roger McCreary and Chigakonkwo. That's pretty much it. So it is good to see that at least the depth draft picks, the day 3 draft picks from that 2024 draft, look like they at least might stick around and give you starting level production for a couple of years.
Well, that's what happens when you stockpile bad drafts upon bad drafts. You trade your franchise wide receiver in A.J. Brown. You let Derrick Henry walk out the door. And now it really shows what you had lying underneath the surface. So now the Titans are kind of having to rebuild from the stubs, starting with the centerpiece and Cam Ward, and kind of go from there. The good thing is Jeffrey Simmons is still relatively young. You have J.C. Latham on the right side, who you mentioned the word stalwart at right tackle. You have Calvin Ridley, who 3 years left on the deal, Bryce Oliver, Alec Manor, Gunnar Helm. So there's a future there, but you just got to continue to draft well.
Right. You're starting to see the young players actually do what they're supposed to, and that's develop. Now, there's a long way to go. We've talked about how little depth this team has at a lot of positions. Like, you look at corner, it's thin. Even inside linebacker, we're talking about it as, all right, you got this trio of guys who all look like they can be quality players with Barton and Gray and Williams. But behind that, if somebody gets hurt, you're in big trouble. Edge is thin and not very good at the top. Defensive tackle, good at the top, but thin. Safety might be the only position on defense where you feel like you have some depth. On the offensive side, the offensive line, you like the top 5. But if anybody goes down, you're in trouble. Like, Corey Levin might be serviceable at center, but you don't really have a swing tackle. And how confident are you in Blake Hance or Andrew Rupchich to come in and be a solid guard for you if they have to? So offensive line's thin, wide receivers thin, running back with Tajay Spears is thin, quarterback, it's Cam Ward. And if Cam Ward gets hurt, your season's over. So at tight end might be the only position you feel like you have some depth at. So it is going to be a process, but the first step in building depth is hitting on your late round picks, because those guys, they don't have to be superstars for you, but they can't be complete duds. And that's what they were for 3 straight years. You're finally starting to see some of those young guys actually make plays, which is a good sign for the Titans as they continue this rebuild.
Absolutely. And I really love the when Gunnar Helm was drafted and when Alec Aomanor, I thought both of those were steals in the 4th round. I really thought Aomanor would go late second round, early third, and he ended up slipping to 4. And I was shocked. And I think that is a great wide receiver piece that could eventually work your way up to being wide receiver 2. I think I'm sky high on Alec Aomanor. And then Gunnar Helm as well. The future of the tight end room can grow with Cam Ward, serve as a safety blanket. And then if there's stability along this offensive line and you continue to add depth, good quality depth, I really could see this being a good thing for the team.
Yes. And this draft class is huge. I think 2024, you looked at it and said, all right, well, if Latham and Sweat can just be the guys we drafted them to be, you can call that a success and move on. But if you're getting more behind that, that's even better. This year's class is obviously massive. You made 9 picks. Not all of them are going to end up being players for you, but if you could make those 9 picks turn into a couple, like you said, the pass catchers are huge. And even a guy like Marcus Harris. I thought Marcus Harris looked good on Friday night.
Oh, yeah, showed the speed.
I'm not saying that he's going to ever be a starting cornerback for you, but if he can be an upgrade over Amani Oruwariye, who I thought was horrible,
I think he already is
on Friday night, like, that's helpful. Another player that I didn't write this down in the show plan who flashed on Friday night, Gabe Jeudy-Lally. I thought, like, he made some plays that you're like, all right, maybe there is a little more depth at corner or at nickel behind Roger McCreary. Again, I don't think Gabe Jeudy-Lally, former undrafted guy, is ever going to be a star for you, but he was getting his nose in there. He was crashing on the blitz. He was stopping the run. Like, I liked what I saw from Gabe Jeudy-Lally. So maybe you're seeing some of that depth start to grow, and cornerback is a huge one, especially with who knows what happens with L'Jarius Sneed.
I tweeted that out after the game about Gabe Jeudy-Lally. He's been getting a little run with the 1s at practice, just depending on who's available, but mostly with the 2s. Gabe Jeudy-Lally has been making plays all camps. Lots of great pass deflections, pass breakups, good in coverage. But here's the issue about the secondary depth is you have Jalen Kimber, who's running on the opposite side of Gabe Jeudy-Lally, who is an undrafted free agent, a rookie.
Right.
Now, granted, it's probably about as good a rookie undrafted signing as you could possibly make, but when your 2s are both undrafted guys, that's the concerning part.
Yeah, and Jamari Harris hasn't made as many plays either, the undrafted free agent out of Iowa, but I thought he was solid in his late appearances on Friday night. He was the one who made the hit on Emory Jones on that 4th down, I believe, that ended up getting the ball back to the Titans late in the game. I do want to apologize. I said the Vikings and Titans game was Saturday. It's Friday night. Friday night is the preseason finale between the Vikings and Titans at 7 p.m. The Titans are on the practice field right now. We haven't gotten many updates and no pressers today, so we won't hear from Brian Callahan or Cam Ward. We will hear from Brian Callahan tomorrow, and I believe that will be during our show. So we should be able to bring at least some of that to you live tomorrow as the Titans are back on the practice field at 10 a.m. tomorrow. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you. More to get to on the Titans and their preseason win over the Falcons on Friday night. We'll do that coming up next. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 1025 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you on this Monday, a Titans reaction Monday after a 23-20 win over the Falcons in preseason game number 2 on Friday night. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. If you have thoughts, you can text or call. Our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Titans are on the practice field right now over at Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park, although it is a closed practice, so we're not getting too many updates, but I'm sure we will get some sort of reaction to what the Titans look like today. I think this is an important practice for the Titans. A lot was made about the 10-day road trip and, was the team getting tired and were they, getting fatigued by all the travel? And I know we talked with PK about, they must be so tired from staying in their luxury winery hotel. I get it. They're not a single-A baseball team making 12-hour bus trips to spend 2 weeks on the road. But, they were away from home. I'd like to see some juice, or at least hear that there was some juice out there at practice today. Cam Ward also has limited some of the mistakes over the last couple of weeks. Heading into that joint practice with Tampa Bay, remember, Parker, we were coming off the Sunday practice where Brian Callahan lit up the offense coming off the field, and the reports were Cam Ward went 5 of 13 in team drills and nearly threw a couple of interceptions. It seems like he has been progressing well, and that was a tough stretch. You had 3 joint practices, 2 preseason games. They kind of threw him into the fire there, and outside of a couple mistakes like the throwaway that didn't get out of bounds against Atlanta and the one bad throw against Tampa in the preseason game, overall, I think he's showing progress. But now you're back at home. You're back comfortable. Can he start to accelerate it a little bit as we head towards preseason game number 3 and the regular season right around the corner? I'd like to hear that Cam Ward is really starting to lock in and he's starting to become the guy who you can look at and say, yeah, that guy's ready for the Broncos defense in Mile High in week 1.
Yeah, and again, I mentioned the stat watchers are not having a good time looking at Cam Ward's performance, but I thought watching him and kind of rewatching some clips as well, I thought he's made good decisions. I thought that he's been accurate with the football. I honestly think the timing with his feet has been a lot better than it has been in practice. So there's plenty of good to build on. And he, again, that last throw to Aomanor, that was the slot fade. I thought it was the right read, just really good coverage by the Atlanta defense.
Yep.
So I think he's making good reads and tying it together with his feet. Now, can you hit a couple more explosive plays? Now, can you get the offense going a little bit earlier, which he did with the first throw to Aomanor in the preseason game against Atlanta? Can you do that more often?
Right. And you mentioned that throw to Aomanor. I thought that was his best rep of the preseason so far. Like the Calvin Ridley 27-yard catch against Tampa, he had all day to throw. Ridley just sat down in a hole in the zone. There was no one close, and he hit him. I loved seeing Cam Ward feel the pressure, step outside, and make an accurate throw on the run. Like that's what you want to see from Cam Ward. That's what you saw at Miami that made him so good. The feel in the pocket, the ability to move and make accurate throws on the run on time.
Making plays out of structure and making plays within structure. I thought he's done a mix of both in the very limited action that he's had in the preseason, and that has to be encouraging. Has to be.
Right. It is. It just hasn't been consistent enough, and I'd like to see more consistency. Like, I'd love to see coming out of practice, Jim Wyatt does the observations from all the practice. And I don't know if we'll get a full one today, but he always kind of puts, all right, here's what Cam Ward did in practice. He was 5 of 7 in 7-on-7s, and then he went 6 of 11 in team drills. I'd love to see some higher completion percentage. Like, yeah, you want to see the throws downfield, but I'd love to see just a little bit more consistency from Cam Ward. And I get it. 2 of 7 doesn't really tell the story because he did complete a pass that I guess was backwards to Alec Aomanor, because I was so confused watching the game. I'm like, 2 completions. He at least completed 3 passes. They didn't count it. So that would make him 3 of 8.
One was dropped.
So there's 4 of 8. And, the Aomanor one down on the slot fade, like you mentioned, I thought it was a fine throw. It wasn't
the right read.
It wasn't perfect.
Based on the concept, it was the right read. Just good coverage.
He didn't drop it in the bucket like the Anthony Richardson's throw we saw over the weekend. Like,
that was beautiful.
That was the kind of throw he would have needed to make in order to complete that pass. It was great coverage. So the stats don't really tell the story, but also you had 2 3-and-outs out of your 3 drives. Like, blame the first drive ending on Van Jefferson because, it was a great throw. Was it a perfect throw? No, but it should have been caught. You're an NFL wide receiver. You catch that pass. So you can blame the first drive on that. The second drive, Latham had the false start on 3rd and 8, which I guess, it makes you wonder what the play call would have been on 3rd and 8 because there's a lot more plays in the playbook for 3rd and 8 than 3rd and 13. So sure there. But the third one, you miss 2 throws and you end up punting on 3 plays again. So I'd like to see some consistency in practice and then carrying that in. I want to see one good drive on Friday night against the Vikings. And I know that fans going out to the stadium, it's probably going to be hot. You don't want to go out there and only see one drive from Cam Ward. But if he can go down and just get you points, like even if it's a field goal, just show consistent, move the chains, and get off the field, I'm good with that. You don't need to see any more.
How much do you want to see him play in general? Just one really good drive.
I want to see him play until he finishes on a high note. Like, that's what I think is the most important thing heading into the regular season. Send him out with some confidence. Obviously you don't, if he's really struggling, you don't want to keep just throwing him back out there. But let's say the plan is 3 drives. But if on the second drive, he goes out and leads a touchdown drive, like a 9-play, 80-yard touchdown drive, pull him. There's no point in sending him back out there. So I just want to see some consistency, get one good drive on Friday night, and pack it up and head to Denver. Like, that's all you need.
Especially if he does it against Brian Flores' defense, who's going to throw the entire kitchen sink at him. I'm sure Minnesota's going to have more starters playing since it's the last preseason game and you want to get them some reps. We'll see what happens. But if Cam Ward leads a touchdown drive against the Vikings defense, Titans fans are going to go crazy.
I agree. I also wonder if he will see any starters. And that, I mean, it concerns you a little bit.
Surely you'll see some, right?
I don't know. Like, the preseason has become so random. Like, it just depends on the team. Some teams, like Joe Burrow, seemingly plays 3 drives in every single game when he probably doesn't need to. But I don't know if the Vikings are a team that's going to run everybody out there. We'll see. 7829 talking about the throw to Van Jefferson, saying incomplete, but that was a dot. Y'all are nuts. Keep saying that throw wasn't awesome to Van. It was awesome. It was
absolute seed.
It was a great throw.
It was great.
The end zone camera shows you that he put it in a great spot, but it's not like it would have been a tough catch to make.
But you got to catch it. That's
right.
The point.
And
yeah,
I'm not blaming Cam Ward's throw. I'm not saying that, man, it wasn't good enough from Cam Ward. He thread the needle. He put it in a place where his guy could go get it, and he didn't. That's on Van Jefferson. I'm just saying, like, let's not act like that ball hit Van Jefferson right on the money. Like, it wasn't an easy catch to make, but it was about as good as you could do from right there. Like, that is about as good a throw as you can make from Cam Ward. But also, you have to understand, it wasn't like it was dropped in the bucket, easy catch for Van Jefferson. It would have taken a little extra effort. Justin asks, have the Titans said if Ridley or more of the starters are going to play in this next game? No, they have not. I would hope that they're going to have the starters on offense play as long as Cam Ward does. The offensive line is going to play as long as Cam Ward's out there. And I didn't mention this earlier when we were talking about Dan Moore and how I thought they were insane to send Cam Ward out there without Dan Moore. Watching that replay of Dan Moore getting rolled up on, he got really, really lucky. Like, really, really lucky.
That's the thing with those ankle injuries. I mean, sometimes you just get so lucky, and sometimes it's just...
Well, I mean, I was watching the replay, and at that point, we didn't really know if Dan Moore was actually hurt or not. He was walking off, which was a good sign. But I'm watching, and I see the big defensive tackle in slow motion just falling towards Dan Moore's flexed leg on the ground. I'm like, oh my goodness. Like, that could have been
so much worse.
That could have been a broken leg. It could have been a broken ankle. It could have been an ACL. But Dan Moore slid his leg out at the last second and just rolled it up a little bit. Got very lucky, because if Dan Moore goes out, Cam Ward is going to be running for his life. Not that Dan Moore is Trent Williams, but Dan Moore is a serviceable left tackle. He's been a starting left tackle for 4 straight years. if you lose him, they would have been in trouble. So watching that replay, Dan Moore, I don't know if it was just luck or if he felt somebody falling, but he snuck his leg out at the very last second before he would have been seriously injured.
Can you imagine the conversation we'd be having if Dan Moore was seriously injured?
Yeah. I mean, that's at the point where it's like, do you bubble wrap Cam Ward for his rookie season and just try and wait?
I'm so thankful we're not having that conversation today.
Me too. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. If you have thoughts, we'd love to hear from you. You can text or call our phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. 30 minutes left in the show. Chase and Big Joe coming up at the top of the hour. I want to flip back over to the defensive side of the ball. I have some concerns, but I don't know if I'm waving any red flags yet. We'll talk about that coming up next. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 1025 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you for just under 30 more minutes. Chasing Big Joe coming up at the top of the hour. It is a Titans Reaction Monday. Titans beating the Falcons in preseason game number 2 on Friday night. One more in the preseason this Friday, right over at Nissan Stadium before the regular season gets underway September 7th in Denver against the Broncos. I had a thought on the Titans defense, and I don't want to wave any red flags because the Titans defense is missing their 2 best run defenders, Jeffrey Simmons, T'Vondre Sweat. And Cody Barton hasn't played a whole lot in the preseason either, but man, has the run defense been bad. I mean, they gave up 180 yards to Tampa on last Saturday, and Sean Tucker was pleased with his performance coming out of Syracuse. Parker, do you remember that when Sean Tucker was at Syracuse, he'd tweet that out every single week of like, this week I ran for 197 yards and 2 touchdowns. I was pleased with my performance as Syracuse got the win. Like he's a character, but he ran like he was, it looked like he was back at Syracuse as they ran for 180 yards against the Titans in week 1 the preseason. It was better overall on Friday night against Atlanta, but like that long touchdown, it looked like the linebackers both should have been there, and they both shot the wrong gap, and running back slips through, outruns everybody to the end zone. I'm a little bit concerned about the run defense. Not that I thought the Titans' run defense was going to be elite. Although, was it Robbie, I know, keeps tweeting out about how the Titans coaching staff keeps talking to Charles Davis and saying no one's going to run on the Tennessee Titans this year. So I really don't, I don't know if I should be concerned about it because, again, the best players that the Titans have against the run haven't been on the field. And this defense looks a whole lot different with Jeffrey Simmons and T'Vondre Sweat in the middle of the line. But it is a little bit concerning that the depth has been so bad at stopping the run over the last couple of weeks. I mean, I don't know if we're going to see Sweat at all this week. You can make the assumption Jeffrey Simmons is not going to play at all in the preseason. They need T'Vondre Sweat to get healthy, though. And I know it's his tonsils, so I would guess that it's probably not going to linger too much longer, but he needs to get back out on the practice field and on the field in the preseason. 3337 on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, says, still waiting for you guys to break the Trey Hendrickson to the Titans news. I can pretty much without a shadow of the doubt say it's not going to happen.
We're not going to talk about it because it's not going to happen.
Right. I told Parker before we went on the air that I purposefully did not put Trey Hendrickson on here because it would make absolutely no sense for the Titans to trade for Trey Hendrickson. Trey Hendrickson is a move you make if you feel like you are a Trey Hendrickson away from being a Super Bowl contender, like the Bills or the Ravens, or maybe even a team in the NFC like the Commanders or the 49ers if they're trying to get one last run out of that group that they've got over there. Like, that would be a team that it would make sense. And it was funny because I saw Jordan Schultz report that the 3 teams that are most closely linked to Trey Hendrickson were the Panthers, Colts, and Browns. I'm like, not one of those teams would make sense to go get Trey Hendrickson.
A Super Bowl contender needs to go get Trey Hendrickson.
Right. Like, all 3 of those
Lions?
teams have so many holes. Yeah, the Lions would be perfect to go get Trey Hendrickson. Go all in and give up the picks to go get a shot at a Super Bowl. Like, I know it didn't work out, but when the Titans traded for Julio Jones, they felt they were a Julio Jones away from being a Super Bowl contender. And he wasn't great, but they were the number 1 seed in the AFC that year. It made sense to go spend a second-round pick to go get Julio Jones when they made that trade. But as a team that, your own front office is laughing at the idea of you going and having a chance to win the Super Bowl, like, they are not one player away. You don't need to give up those picks because those picks are going to be important in you building up this roster to where they can be competitive again. Those picks are way more valuable to the Titans right now than Trey Hendrickson would be.
And not to mention the asking price right now per Diana Rossini is a young defensive player and a 2026 first-round pick.
Yeah.
How much more years does Trey Hendrickson have in his prime? It just does not make sense for the Titans to go out and give up that much capital for a team that's rebuilding. Trey Hendrickson's not going to win here in Tennessee for how many years? What, 1, 2, 3, maybe years left in his prime? Not going to happen.
You just made the L'Jarius Sneed trade, and it blew up in your face, at least so far. I'm not going to completely give up hope. There's still like a 5% chance in my mind that L'Jarius Sneed ends up being a decent player for this team.
I said, like, if he can just come back and play top 15 caliber football for a corner, that helps the team out tremendously.
Even top 30. Just go be
serviceable, man.
Go be a starting level cornerback, and it at least looks better. But even if L'Jarius Sneed does come back and he is a serviceable starting level cornerback, is he going to be on the team when this team goes back to the playoffs? I would almost guarantee no.
It'd be hard for me to say yes.
I don't see any path where he is a winning piece of a team that goes to the playoffs. That would be what Trey Hendrickson is. Yeah, it might make this team a little bit easier to watch this year, and maybe it wins you a game
in
this
the
year.
Immediate future.
But what is winning 6 games versus 5 games do for you when your roster, as it's constructed, is not good enough to go make the playoffs right now? And by the time you're good enough, maybe Trey Hendrickson is still on that team, but is he worth whatever contract you're going to give him at that point? Absolutely not.
No. And imagine Trey Hendrickson in Detroit, a team that is ready to win right now, needed some help on the defensive line with all the injuries. They get Aiden Hutchinson back, and on the opposite side, you have Trey Hendrickson. Can you imagine that?
Right. That's a team that it would make sense for. Like 3337, he responds, he's the best pass rusher in the NFL. First of all, he had the most sacks in the NFL last year.
Best pass rusher.
I would say, like, in terms of if you had to pick one guy to go get a sack, I don't think Trey Hendrickson would be that guy. But does the best pass rusher in the NFL help you make any meaningful difference this year? Like, Trey Hendrickson, as good of a player as he is not worth 3 wins this year. Maybe he's worth 1. And unless he's going to be a piece that pulls you into the playoffs, it's not worth it.
And do you think Trey Hendrickson would want to leave Cincinnati, who is a fringe was a fringe playoff team last year, but when they put it all together, they've been to a Super Bowl? Do you think he'd want to come to Tennessee? Because I don't think so. I have a hard time believing that.
No, I think Hendrickson, the reason he wants to leave, first of all, the Bengals are cheap and won't pay him, but like he wants to go compete for a Super Bowl.
And they don't care about their defense, apparently.
Yes. So. Mike on our text line says, we shouldn't trade for Trey Hendrickson for one reason: we need the picks. End of discussion there. You lose credibility when you throw up the L'Jarius Sneed trade. The Sneed trade shouldn't have been made due to his history. The two things are not connected, but it is. Like, it's a similar situation where just because a good player is available doesn't mean that you should go trade for them. Like, you have to take a long, hard look at your team and say, does this player make a meaningful difference for us? And during that offseason, I think if Rand Carthon had taken a long, hard look at his team and said, hey, is L'Jarius Sneed the difference between us winning the division and not winning the division? The answer is probably no. And they tried to sell the team as more than it was, and it ended up blowing up in their faces. Like, I think making the Hendrickson trade would be very similar to making the L'Jarius Sneed trade. Even if Hendrickson ends up being a better player for wherever he goes, it would make the same amount of sense. 3337 says it helps you get a year better and get into the new stadium. I mean, that's kind of what I'm thinking, is that they're trying to build for the new stadium.
This team is focused on the future and the long term.
Right.
They're not focused on right now.
Trey Hendrickson is not going to be a star pass rusher when that new stadium opens up. Or if he is still a 10 sack a year guy, it would be his final year as that kind of player. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. If you have any final thoughts, last call for phones here on the program. Chase and Big Joe are coming up at the top of the hour. We'll wrap up our thoughts on the Titans preseason game. A couple other odds and ends we haven't gotten to yet. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up here on 1025 The Game. Final segment on this Monday, Next Man Up, 1025 The Game. Chase and Big Joe coming up right after us here on the station. Tomorrow, Nick Frazier going to join me for most of the show. And Jeff Hem from the Nashville Sounds going to join for an hour starting at 10:30. So should be a fun show tomorrow. Titans will also be on the practice field. Should be able to carry Brian Callahan's press conference before practice tomorrow as we still await some updates from what's going on there out at Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park. And actually, we might have just gotten some. Yep, here are Teron Davenport's training camp notes for today. Perfect timing just before we wrapped up the show. Jalen Harrell returned to practice. No Tavondre Sweat, no Kevin Winston Jr. Little bit worried about Tavondre Sweat missing most of his second training camp. Lloyd Cushenberry did take part in the 9v7 period, so that's good. Ward with a couple of nice throws to Tyler Lockett and Bryce Oliver. Looking to see if there's any other noticeable things. J.C. Latham had a couple of good reps against Draymond Jones. Femi Oladejo with a good rep against Jalen Duncan. Oh, Jeffrey Simmons and Cam Ward got into it, apparently, again. Cam Ward hit Ridley for a touchdown. Ward was going to Ridley and walked by Simmons, who put his hands on him, and it caused a scuffle. Simmons was running hot from the previous play. Okay. So interesting. I guess J.C. Latham got a good block on Jeffrey Simmons, and Julius Chestnut got a touchdown. Latham let Simmons know about it. So Jeffrey Simmons, as he does, is a disruptor. But it does seem like, just based on those two tweets from Jeffrey Simmons, or from Teron Davenport, it seems like some juice today. Seems like Cam Ward looked pretty good. In fact, actually, Ward did have a 4-play incompletion streak, but he did get a shot to Lockett across the middle. So we'll continue to get some updates from out there at Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park, and I'm sure that Chase and Big Joe will have some updates today. But yeah, Cam Ward and Jeffrey Simmons getting into it. They've talked so much about their trash talking, and I guess it boiled over today in their first intra-squad practice in almost 2 weeks.
This will be a constant theme between the two of them. Just their competitive nature. This is going to be an ongoing thing.
No, I'm not concerned at all about it. I mean, they've talked about it. They went fishing, and it seems like they're good friends. But those are two competitors out on the field, and I guess they got into it today after Cam Ward hit Calvin Ridley for a touchdown. A couple of other things from the Titans preseason game. Did want to mention Joey Sly missing the extra point. I'm not worried about Joey Sly yet, but
I'm not either.
You did, as an organization, you traded out the consistent but safe player in Nick Folk, who was a guy like, if you're inside of 50 yards, 98% of the time he's going to hit it. And you felt good about that. Joey Sly's the opposite of like, hey, you got a chance that he's going to hit some 60 to 65 yarders, but he might miss a 37 yarder every once in a while or miss an extra point.
Yep.
So you got to take the good with the bad. We'll see what he looks like in the regular season, but I don't think the Titans are going to be making any changes at kicker quite yet.
He may be built like a linebacker, but
he's a big guy.
So also the Johnny Hecker front, a lot of people were freaking out about that. The reason he was brought in, at least my impression was, Ryan Stonehouse kind of struggled with his hang time, which resulted in a kind of being a disadvantage for the defense in terms of yardage where the offense was. Johnny Hecker, I believe, was brought in because his hang time was so good.
Yes.
And that would give the return unit or the punt unit an opportunity to get down the field and limit a big return.
It is funny that the Titans change out their special teams coordinator. You bring in experienced Bones Fossil to take over for Colt Anderson, and they completely changed their philosophy at both kicker and punter. Like, Stonehouse was your all or nothing. He's going to kick it 70 yards, but he might give up a 30-yard return. Whereas Hecker is your ultimate net punt guy. Like, it may not go the furthest, but he's going to set up his guys and his coverage unit to be able to make a play. And then you went the opposite way on kicker. So it is funny. They flipped it. Hecker hasn't looked great, but I heard Corey Curtis talking with Robbie and Connor on the way in here about how, he's got 10 years of 42-plus net punting. No one else has ever done that. Let's not freak out about a couple of bad practices and bad preseason games. Again, a lot being made of the Ward and Simmons scrum, I guess they could say. Ward shoved Jeffrey Simmons. Simmons went back at him. Mostly playful is what Paul Kaharski is reporting, but he said Simmons ended up with his helmet off. So Titans bringing some juice in their first practice back in Nashville since, Wednesday, August 7th? So, yeah, almost 2 weeks, week and a half. They are finally back in Nashville and practicing out there. So getting updates from there. Again, Chase and Big Joe will have some thoughts. Texter on our text line, Ron from Franklin, says, you sure kept to your plan not to talk about Trey Hendrickson. Yeah, it was my initial plan, but we got the text, ended up getting into it. But for Titans fans out there hoping for Trey Hendrickson, I would, not get your hopes too high.
Let's put those ideas to rest, please.
Don't think it's going to happen. Couple more thoughts on the Titans game. I had one more that I wanted to get to. Femi Oladejo. We touched on him for a second there before Joseph Newgarden came in, but I did like what we saw from Femi Oladejo. He had the one play where he didn't set the edge on the jet sweep, and as a former inside linebacker, I wasn't thrilled with that, but he had the nice chase down tackle for loss right before the Kendall Brooks pick six, and I thought he had a few good pass rush reps. He didn't get a sack, but I thought that he flashed more than he did against Tampa, which that was what we were asking for. Against Tampa, he was kind of a no-show. And as a edge rusher picked in the second round with a lot of high hopes, you don't want to disappear in a game against backups. And I didn't think he disappeared on Friday night, which is a step in the right direction. Obviously, you want more, but I do think it was a step forward for Femi Oladejo in his development.
Yeah, and what I was telling Connor and Nick on the weekend show, he's still, think about it. This guy has not played edge rusher for an entire calendar year, and people are freaking out. And yes, he was a second-round pick. I understand that, but he's so raw and he's so green of a prospect, it's going to take a while. And not to mention, Denard Wilson has spoken on this several times. They're throwing the kitchen sink at him. They're having him go out in coverage. They're having him set the edge on the run, rush the passer, all of it. And they're just trying to see what sticks. So if there is some bumps along the way, I think it's completely normal.
I agree. And I think when you took Femi Oladejo, you knew that this wasn't going to be an instant impact guy. Like, this is not Abdul Carter, who Abdul Carter got thrown around on, was that Saturday night against the Giants? Did you see, or against the Jets? Did you see this?
Yes.
He got chipped by the tight end and kind of thrown in the air. And as he tried to get back up, the right tackle sent him right back to the ground.
Yep.
And again, it's one rep, but Abdul Carter will probably be a pretty instant impact guy for the Giants. Femi's not going to be that, but you want to see the development. Game 2 is better than game 1. That's pretty much all you can ask for. That's going to just about wrap things up for us here on the program. Fun Monday show. Had Joseph Newgarden in. Again, the Borchetta Bourbon Music City Grand Prix coming up Labor Day weekend, Saturday and Sunday, August 30th and 31st. Make sure you go check that out as Joseph Newgarden looks for his first win in his hometown. Lots of Titans talk. Again, tomorrow, Nick Frazier going to join us for most of the show. Jeff Ham going to be with us for an hour to talk Sounds as the Sounds start a new series here in the Music City coming up tomorrow. For Parker Kelly, I'm Jake Lyman signing off here on this Monday. Chase and Big Joe coming up next here on 102.5 The Game.